Welcome to the Reckless Paradise, everyone. I am your host, Aishro, and we are still without Marissa today. If you guys had not known this by now, she has been just dealing with a lot of stuff right now, and with her personal life and her mental health life and all that stuff. Um, as of right now, she has some stuff going on with her dad and her mom right now. But just keep her in your prayers and all that stuff, and let's just get this show rolling. So tonight's episode is another year in review for wrestling, and I'm gonna keep the trend going. I'm gonna keep the train going here since I did 1998 and 1999. And I mean, I might as well just go ahead and just do the year 2000. Now, the year 2000 was a crazy year for WWE, WCW, and ECW at that time. Because they were like the three major players in town. But you have like some other companies coming up on the up and up with like CMLL, FMW, AAA, New Japan Pro Wrestling, and WXW, which is World Extreme Wrestling, and the WWC, which is the World Wrestling Council, at that time too. But the main three that I'm going to be really talking about majority of this episode is going to be ECW, WCW, and WWF. Now, with that being said, I'm going to do the births, the debuts, the retirements, and the deaths first, so that I can just get those out of the way, and then we will go into the shows in the year 2000. So there are three noticeable birthdays here. One of them is the one of the Benoit kids, Daniel Benoit, who is the son of Nancy and Chris Benoit. He was only 7 when he passed, which is fucking crazy. If you don't know what happened, just go listen to our uh, Chris Benoit episode on that subject. A fair warning, it does get kind of graphic and it does get kind of dark. So your discretion is advised on that. Um, but another one is Gable Steveson. But if you don't know who he is, he's a former Olympic wrestler and all that stuff. He turned WWE wrestler. I guess supposedly was on the main roster for God knows how long. Didn't even have a damn match. Went to NXT and then had like a shitty match with Baron Corbin. And then he got released or something. Which I don't wish him the best of luck in his future endeavors because he is a piece of shit. Um, but a highly recommended wrestler that I suggest you guys go to watch is Titus Alexander. He is a West Coast Pro world champion. He is a uh, Pro Wrestling Noah star right now with Starboy Charlie. They're doing pretty good things over there on the wrestling for the Noah brand. He's a WCP wrestler, as I said. He's worked for like Deadlock Pro Wrestling and major indies and all that stuff. So he's a top kid to watch out for in the near future. He has a huge uh, stardom against going his way, I should say. Sorry. But it's just like it's crazy that he was born in the year 2000, and his birthday is coming up within the next month. So it's kind of cool to like talk about him now. So now with those birthdays out of the way, we are going to be diving right into some debuts. Now, there's a lot that had debuted around the year 2000, so I'm going to try to go through them as quickly as possible if I can. Um, so there's uncertain debut dates on some of these wrestlers like Chris Sabin, Jack Evans, Roddy Strong, Nettie Neidhart, Shelly Martinez, but Kenny Omega had debuted in the year 2000, which is crazy that he's been wrestling for like 24 years now. Next year will be like 25 years since he's been wrestling, and he's still in pretty damn good shape. Trish Stratus around this year too. David Arquette, if you don't know who he is, I mean, you've been living under a fucking rock. He's a former WCW World Champion, a famous actor of the Scream movie franchise. Uh, he's an overall good guy, I guess. I don't know much about him. Kevin Steen, which is crazy that he's been wrestling for almost like 24 years. He's been wrestling for 24 years, almost 25 next year. Both of the Briscoe brothers, R.P. Jay Briscoe. Lance Archer, Alberto Del Rio, piece of shit. The Great Khali, which is crazy. I didn't know he debuted in the year 2000, but live and learn. Matt Sydal, Austin Aries, and then there were some other names that I do not know because it's all either Japanese wrestling or like just any other Japanese wrestling. But yeah, like there's some pretty good debuts around in the year 2000, and they're doing pretty good shit today. So it's like it's good to see what has come out of the year 2000 for debuts. So now we go into the retirement section. Now, with the retirements thing, it's like it's just people who had just like I said retired in the year 2000. Um, One of them being Bret Hart. He retired in the year 2000 because of Goldberg super kicking his damn skull off and caused him to have a concussion. Bobby the Brain Heenan, he retired in the year 2000. Randy Savage, like he retired in 2000, but he returned for like one more match in 2004. It's crazy. Miss Elizabeth, God bless her, and her family. Gerald Briscoe and Pat Patterson, the Stooges, they retired the exact same year and the exact same month, which is crazy. And Paul Orndorff, Mr. Wonderful, he retired in 2000, but he returned for a match in 2017, which is fucking incredible. I mean, God bless that man too. Like he's like one of those people that didn't get a good shot at a lot of stuff, which is crazy to say, but it's like it's good to look back on some of these years in wrestling because it's like you just don't know who had debuted or who had gotten birthed into this world, I should say. Um, but yeah, let's kind of like simmer down and gotta go into the depths in a little bit. All right, so for the somber people, for the deaths in 2000, um, there's probably like maybe two or three that I kind of remember in the year 2000. Gary Albright, he was 36 when he had passed. Um, Another big one was like Klondike Bill, who is a mastermind of like how he put together the war games, the first ever war games concept and all that stuff. When Dusty laid down like a sheet of paper on the street and had Klondike Bill like look at it and he constructed it and all that stuff. But the biggest one, no pun intended, but the biggest death that had hit the airwaves was Yokozuna. He was 34 when he passed, and he was one of those guys that even though he was big, he could still like cause like a huge impact. He was like like I said, like he was big for his size, but he was trying to do something that not a lot of people could do. But I want to like do an episode on Yokozuna in the near future because he was like really inspiring for a lot of people because he was part of the Samoan dynasty and he was from California. A lot of people thought he was Japanese, so he's part of that Samoan dynasty and all that stuff, and it's like part of that huge like Samoan family tree. And I just want to like go deep into his life and all that stuff in the near future. But if you want to hear more about Yokozuna, there's probably a lot of people that did a tribute or autobiography on Yokozuna on YouTube or something like that too. But go check him out. Go check out some of his matches, especially the one with Bret Hart and him and Owen Hart were tag champs and all that stuff too. So, but let's dive right into the shows for 2000. Now, when you hear or think about the year 2000, you think about the very first ever TLC match in WWF history with between the Hardys, the Dudleys, and Edge and Christian. You think about the people from WCW jumping ship to Monday Night Raw, which is Chris Benoit, Dean Malenko, Eddie Guerrero, and Perry Saturn, the Rascals, the Radicals, I should say. The Radicals went from WCW and jumped ship the following night after sold out. The next night on Raw, and they didn't have a huge impact, but they made their name in WCW, and they just went to greener pastures and had more opportunities to break through that glass ceiling. Even though two of them, which we'll get into in a little bit, had kind of broke through that glass ceiling a little bit. But let's start with January, right? January 9th, ECW, Guilty as Charged. This is where Mike Awesome and Spike Dudley was in the main event. And this is when Mike Awesome was still the ECW World Heavyweight Champion. And I gotta give Mike Awesome and Spike Dudley credit here. Because Mike Awesome, he was I think he was a contracted WCW wrestler at the time when he went to ECW, and he had made a huge impact in defeating or beating up, I should say, Kevin Nash while he was still under contract with ECW, which is one of those major deflection sort of things. But it was just crazy to think about that time too. But now we go to 7 days later, which was WCW Sold Out, and you have Chris Benoit defeats Sid Vicious for the vacant WCW World Heavyweight title, but then it was just 1 day later where, like I said at the top of the thing, Benoit, Guerrero, Perry Saturn, and Dean Malenko all jump ship the next night to Monday Night Raw, or to WWF for greener pastures. And then 7 days later after that, we were at the Royal Rumble, where you have, the Hardys versus Dudleys in the tables match, which was fucking crazy. Where The Rock wins, quote unquote, wins the Royal Rumble by eliminating the Big Show, even though Big Show should have technically won because Rock's feet both hit the floor, which will be solved at the next pay-per-view. Then you have, and this is also the time period where WCW was on the downcline here. ECW was just having 1 year left, and it was writing on the wall at that point. Because, not a lot of money was coming in. Checks were bouncing from Paul Heyman, and a lot of people were leaving. Like I said with the top of the thing, Dudley's had jump ship. The Radicals had jump ship. So a lot of people from ECW and WCW were really jumping ship to the competition to go to greener pastures, because it's not a lot of people were wanting to deal with the creative with WCW and trying to deal with Paul Heyman on the ECW side. So it's WWF's gain was ECW and WCW's loss, sort of thing. But another key point in the year 2000 was the No Way Out pay-per-view, which was the main event, had Triple H, who was the top heel champion at the time, defeating Cactus Jack in a Hell in a Cell for a title versus career match for the WWF Championship, which I will say, full stop, is one of the most heartbreaking kind of end to a career for Cactus Jack McFoley, whatever you want to call him. But it's it would be rectified a month later for Mania and all that stuff, which is crazy. But it is the not the best Hell in a Cell match, but one of the best Hell in a Cell matches at that time in the year 2000. because you wanted to see Triple H get his ass kicked. Which, I mean, like, that's still, like, nowadays, but, he's head of creative and all that stuff now. But if you go into March, and also that Hell in a Cell No Way Out match was from February 27th, by the way, if you're looking for it on the WWF network or the Peacock version. So we're going to go into March now. We have ECW Living Dangerously. You have Super Crazy versus Rhino for the vacant ECW World Television Championship, who was actually Rob Van Dam. He had held it for nearly almost 2 years, but he had tore his ACL or MCL. But he basically almost broke his leg, and he had to vacate it. And Rob Van Dam was like facing, he faced Jerry Lynn a few times. He faced Balls Mahoney. He faced like a lot of people, left, right, and center, but always defeated him. And it was actually kind of awesome to see Super Crazy win this year, because Super Crazy was one of those like luchadors, those crazy people that didn't get a fair shot at a lot of things, and it's actually pretty cool to see him actually win something in ECW. And plus, he was facing Rhino, who was like on a tear in 2002. So, in like another cases like that too, like Rhino, he leaves ECW to go to WWF in the year 2001. So it's like, there's a lot of people jumping ship and all that stuff too. And that was like when Evasion's about to come around the corner too in the year 2001. But Living Dangerously as a whole it's a pretty good pay per view. If you want to know a little bit more about it, go check out Brian Zane's video on that subject and all that stuff. He goes very deep into detail on that. But now, like I said, with the decline of WCW, March 19th at Uncensored in 2000, the main event, it's not for the World Championship. It's not for, like the most prestigious prize in the World Championship Wrestling. It's Hulk Hogan versus Ric Flair sticking up the joint in the Yavapai Indian strap match. And that shit sucked. I will say that wholeheartedly, it did indeed suck. Because like I said, it's not only you didn't have you had the world champion on the show, who was Sid Vicious at the time. You didn't. It's like Sid Vicious and Jeff Jarrett went almost 7.5 minutes. That's crazy. It's just so crazy to me. Like, this show legit sucked. Because it's like, you think of the word uncensored, it's like, it's supposed to be like WCW's answer to WWF at that time, because it's like, WWF was still into the Attitude Era and all that stuff. It's about to die down a little bit, but it's like come on, like, it's uncensored. Like, come on, you gotta go balls to the wall with this pay per view, but they couldn't do that, and it just pains me to think, in a year's time, WCW and ECW are going to be closed, and that's when Vince McMahon the next night was like, I bought my competition and all that stuff, and I own WCW and all that stuff, and it's crazy to think that what if WCW and ECW were still alive and still opened and all that stuff. It's like maybe if Vince could have helped out either brand or either company, would they still be alive today? Would they still be defunct from years from now and all that stuff like they did in 23 years ago? But that's a story for another time. But anyway, on to April 2nd, 2000, WrestleMania 2000, which was supposed to be WrestleMania 16, but I don't think that will stick. But this is the very first triangle ladder match for the WWF tag titles, which actually put Edge and Christian, Dudley Boys, and the Hardy Boys more on the map as the three teams that are going to carry the tag division for the year 2000. Now, with that being said, like you have that, but then you have Chris Benoit, Chris Jericho, and Kurt Angle in a two-fall triple threat match for the WWF Intercontinental and European Championships, which both Benoit and Jericho pinned, each other for both of those titles, which is crazy. And then you have the Fatal 4-Way elimination match for the WWF title, which was Triple H, The Rock, Mick Foley, and Big Show. Yes, the McMahon at every corner match, which is kind of funny to look at in retrospect a little bit. But, not going to say that was a good show either. It had its ebbs and flows and all that stuff, but if you want to have three matches from that show, I would say the Triangle Ladder match, the 2 out of 3 falls match between Benoit, Jericho, and Angle, and the WWF Elimination Fatal 4-Way. That's my three, I would say. So now we go on to April 16th, ECW's WrestlePalooza, which is the 6-man tag street fight between Tommy Dreamer, The Sandman, and New Jack versus The Network, which was Steve Corino, Jack Victory, and Yoshihiro Tajiri. I have not seen this match yet, but I can tell you by those 6 people involved, that had to be really bloody good. I could probably say that wholeheartedly. But then, 6 days later, they have ECW SummerSlam, which was Just Incredible versus Tommy Dreamer for the ECW World Championship. Now, this is where Just Incredible wins his first ever ECW title, I believe. Which is crazy. I mean, like, yeah, he only won it once. That's just fucking crazy. But then, 8 days later, on April 30th, 2000, this is WCW Backlash. WWF Backlash, which was The Rock versus Triple H for the WWF Championship, and you have Shane McMahon as the special guest referee. Which I mean, you had to see it coming, but kind of like all right. But let's see what happened here. So you had like Edge and Christian defeat D-Generation X, which was Road Dogg and X-Pac, because I think Billy Gunn was injured at the time. Now one of these matches was an actually good classic. It was for the light heavyweight championship, Dean Malenko versus Sky Juhadi. I would really suggest you guys go check that out because it was really fucking good. Because it actually showed Dean Malenko and Sky Juhadi see like what they could do in the damn ring. Then you have like Chris Benoit versus Jericho, but Chris Benoit won by DQ, or retained by DQ. Then you have The Rock and Triple H, which is like the multi-month or year rivalry at that point. But then you have you have Insurrection the next month and on May 6th. And then you have this is where I deem the whole total decline for WCW. May 7th, Slamboree, Jeff Jarrett defeats David Arquette and DDP in a Rage Rumble Steel Cage for the World Championship. Now, this is the year where Ready to Rumble came out, and it's not a good movie, it's not a bad movie, it's like in the middle movie. This is where David Arquette turns heel on DDP and gives Jeff Jarrett the world title. And the internet ran wild on that one. And, let's see. Sorry. May 14th, ECW, Hardcore Heaven, where the Impact players kind of imploded. Just Incredible versus Lance Storm for the world title. It was actually a pretty good match. I actually liked that match. Alright, so here's where we get cooking. May 21st, Judgment Day for the WWF in Louisville, Kentucky. Triple H versus The Rock in a 60-minute Iron Man match for the WWF Championship. And I will tell you this. The last minute of that is all Undertaker, and because that's the hugest pop of all time. And this is like when Undertaker comes back as the American Badass gimmick, which is like the best gimmick I ever seen. And I still believe that to this day. Um, it's actually kind of funny that they went a whole 60 minutes with that. Um, but it's Rock and Triple H. I mean, they were still like young and kind of energetic and all that stuff. Which is still funny. Um, but yeah, Triple H wins all to get back the WWF Championship. All right, so there wasn't really much to look forward to in June, but WWF had the King of the Ring pay per view in 2000, and this is the year where Kurt Angle wins the King of the Ring, the year 2000, which is a huge moment for Kurt Angle's career. Um, and the main event is not even the King of the Ring final, which Kurt Angle wins over Rikishi, by the way, but the main event for the WWF Championship. It's a six-man tag featuring The Rock, Kane, and Undertaker on one side. Then you have Mr. McMahon, Shane McMahon, and Triple H on the other. That's crazy in itself because 4 out of the 6 wrestlers, or workers, I should say, actually kind of helped McMahon, or both McMahons, to a good match, I believe. I don't know. But it was like if Triple H, Shane, or Vince got pinned or submitted, Triple H would lose the title to whoever scored the pin or the submission. The Rock won the championship by pinning Mr. McMahon. That was a good note to clarify because I don't think I would have known that. But yeah, so that is the end of June. But now, let me get into July. July 9th, WCW's Bash at the Beach. Now, this is the pay-per-view where Jeff Jarrett comes out and lays down for Hogan because he didn't want to do the job, and Hogan didn't want to do whatever they had pitched to Hogan from uh, uh, Vince Russo at the time. And this is the infamous, Vince Russo promo, the work shoot promo on Hogan and Bischoff, and they're creative and all that stuff. And you bald bastard, you could kiss my ass, and then you have Hogan. This is why the company's in the shape it is in because of the bullshit like this and all that stuff. And it is a really good promo for Vince Russo. But if you want to know the more of the context behind the work shoot promo and the whole stuff behind it, go check out the Dark Side of the Ring episode on the Bash at the Beach 2000. It is a really good episode. It goes very, very in depth on it. But yeah, that's a good way to segue into ECW's show Heatwave for July 16th, 2000. Justin Credible versus Tommy Dreamer in a Stairway to Hell match for the ECW World Title. I'm thinking Justin Credible is like getting kind of like not the short end of the stick a little bit, but he's kind of like getting like the Tommy Dreamer, like I guess experiment. I guess it's like if you do well with Dreamer, it's like you're gonna do well in the next stage of your career or something. I'm guessing that was a good match as well because I don't know. Like I have never seen it, so if you guys have seen it or heard about it, please let me know in the comments below. So now we're on to July 23rd, WWF's Fully Loaded in Dallas, Texas, which is the labeled as the triple main event, I should say, which is the Rock versus Chris Benoit, Triple H versus Chris Jericho, and Taker versus Kurt Angle. But I would kind of counteract that Taker and Kurt Angle one and say that Val Venis and Rikishi Steel Cage for the IC title match. I would say those are 4 matches I would look forward to in this show. It was a really good show from top to bottom a little bit. I would say like from Val Venus to the main event was really good. Taker versus Kurt was like it's like one of those things where it's like Taker was like gonna win either way. Um, but the Triple H and Chris Jericho match from the Last Man Standing match was really really fucking good. And The Rock versus Chris Benoit for the WWF title and all that stuff was really good. Which was like one of those things where it's like Chris Benoit like got that shot for I can't remember like if he won or I think he pinned Rock or something like that. But anyway, um, it was actually a pretty good match. The four matches that I had said. All right, so now we're going into August. For a lot of people, to be specific, August 27th, 2000 for SummerSlam. Now, this SummerSlam is not the best SummerSlam in the world, but it's one of the best in for three reasons. Chris Benoit versus Chris Jericho, the first ever TLC match for the WWF Tag Titles between Edge and Christian, Dudley Boyz, and Hardy Boyz, in the main event between The Rock, Triple H, and Kurt Angle. Now, I will go kind of deep into the TLC match at a later date, but the Rock versus Triple H versus Kurt Angle actually kind of got started without The Rock, but then Triple H went for a pedigree on Kurt Angle, and he kind of like slipped a little bit, and the table gave way, and Kurt Angle had a big old concussion, and he was not willing to like. He was like not all there, and so it was just Rock and Triple H for a little bit, and then Kurt Angle came back out and kind of wrestled the rest of that match, which is crazy. And this is his rookie year too. I mean, he would end the year with a major title, but it's like we'll get to that in a little bit. Um, but now we're going into September with Fall Brawl, which is like, man, it's like that's why I was saying like this is like the severe decline for WCW at that point. Um, then you have like Unforgiven on September 24th between The Rock, Chris Benoit, Kane, and The Undertaker for the WWE Championship. Now we're going into October. Now, in October, this is one of the, I guess, not most synonymous, I guess, months for wrestling, I guess, but it's a I guess not a strenuous one, but it's kind of a weird one. Um, but October 1st for WCW or WCW. October 1st for ECW Anarchy Rules. This is where Jerry Lynn wins his first ECW World Championship from Just Incredible. Um, and then you have WWF No Mercy in October 22nd. Kurt Angle defeats The Rock in a no DQ match for the WWF Championship. Now, he did all this. Like, he did the IC title, the European title, the King of the Ring, and the WWF Championship within his first year of being a rookie in wrestling. Which is, like, crazy to think about, like, in hindsight, because, like, he's had a huge, like, lengthy career as Kurt Angle. He's won like multiple world championships. He's won like multiple like I think I don't know if he was a tag champion for a little bit. And then like he has had like crazy matches all over the in WWE and in TNA. But it's like it's crazy how Kurt Angle like, he debuted in '99, and then within the first year of 2000, within his first year in 2000, like he's won like multiple accolades, and he's improved. He had improved a lot, and plus he was a good heel on the mic too. So it's like kudos to that man too. All right, so now we're going into the last 2 months in 2000. We're almost near the end, folks. November 5th, 2000. ECW's November to Remember, And the main event is a double Jeopardy match for the ECW World Championship. Now, what that means is the participants involved, which was Steve Corino, Just Incredible, Sandman, and Jerry Lynn, they could not touch each other within, I guess, the confines of that match and stuff. But it's basically like a four-way dance. It was like basically like elimination and all that stuff. Whereas like Sandman can't touch Credible, Steve Corino couldn't touch Jerry Lynn and all that stuff, but both the Sandman and Jerry Lynn were both eliminated by Corino and Credible at the exact same time. And then Steve Corino eliminates Just Incredible with the old school kick to win the ECW World Heavyweight Championship. It is a huge clusterfuck for the main event, but it still kicked ass. And plus, this is like ECW's like booming period in 2000 as well. But then you have November 19th, 2000 for Survivor Series. So like I said, with 2000 Survivor Series, oh man, this is gonna be kind of a tough one to get through a little bit. So I'm trying to say good things about this pay per view because it wasn't a really good pay per view. But like the main event like ended with a no contest between Austin and Triple H. It's like it's no DQ and it's a no contest. Like, come on, man! Like that sends like the crowd on like a sour note, and it sucks. But you have November 26th for WCW for Mayhem. This is where Scott Steiner defeats Booker T in a steel cage for the WCW World Championship. And he will hold on to that title until the very end of WCW in 2001, which will be November, December, January, February, March, so 5 months, which is crazy to think about. All right. We are in the last month of 2000. This is going to be, I guess, a rough one to get through as well. Because when you think about, like, December, you think about, like, like WWF, ECW, and WCW. This is before, we're about to hit the peak year in 2001 for wrestling pay-per-views for the WWF and all that stuff. But you have Rebellion with at the beginning of the month, but this is where you're gonna get the Armageddon Hell in a Cell 6-man Hell in a Cell match, which I'll get to in a little bit. But you have with December 3rd, ECW, their pay-per-view Massacre on 34th Street, which was Steve Corino defeats Jerry Lynn and Just Incredible in a three-way dance for the World Heavyweight title, which was fucking amazing. Now, December 10th, 2000, WWF Armageddon, the 6-man Hell in a Cell match between Angle, Rock, Austin, Triple H, Undertaker, and Rikishi, which should have been basically just a 5-way Hell in a Cell match, because Rikishi didn't really need to be involved at all, but he was involved with The Rock and all that stuff, and he was also an accomplice to Triple H's Dirty Business, which kind of like, it's like a huge like web of like lies and that weaves in and out and all that stuff. It was a really good match though. I would suggest to go check that out if you hadn't already. And then you have Starrcade, which I mean that's there. But then you have like you end out the rest of the year. You end out the year 2000 with ECW's Holiday Hell between Steve Corino, Just Incredible, and the Sandman, which this trio will run it back at the end of, I'm thinking, either January or February of 01 with I think not Anarchy Rules, but I'm trying to think of the pay per view, but it'll come to me later. But they will run it back, and that's where Sandman wins the ECW championship for I think a fourth or fifth time, and then you have Rhino come in and spear or gore Sandman to pieces, and he wins the ECW World Heavyweight Championship, and he is the kind of like the final ECW World Heavyweight Champion for like a long time. Uh, but we're not going to count the Matt Cardona title reign because that was a fluke, a fluke. But yeah. In a nutshell, 2000 was a good year, but it was also a bad year for some wrestling companies. Like I said at the top of the thing, this is the writing on the wall for WCW and ECW as respective companies, and like I said, people from WCW and ECW were both jumping ship to the competition, and then the next year you have the final three pay per views for WCW and ECW. Um, and they try to go out with a bang, but with a whimper. Um, but WWF was thriving. They were selling tickets, they were selling merch and all that stuff, and it leads to like the biggest WrestleMania in history at that time. Over like a million buys that year. But yeah, but I'll go into my final thoughts in a little bit. So 2000 in a nutshell is this. It's like I said, it's not bad, it's not worse, it's not good, but it's 2000. It's the almost the near end of the Attitude Era. Um, WWF, ECW, and WCW were putting on, I guess, some of their best shows at the time. More so WWF more than anything, but ECW was still trying to thrive and still trying to be alive and kicking until the last days. Um, and eventually, Paul Heyman kind of found that writing on the wall to be kind of like a nail in the coffin sort of ideology here. Um, but I would say WWF had more star power than ECW and WCW did. But even though WCW had you had your Scott Steiner, you had Booker T, you had Jeff Jarrett, you had Hogan, you had like all these major players and all that stuff. But at the time, Nash, Hall, and Hogan, and all those other people didn't want to go to WWF until their contract had run out. So Goldberg and all of them. They didn't show up until 2002, which we had covered here on the show before. Um, but it's crazy to think that 2000 was I guess the creative year, I should say. Um, Whereas I think 2002 was kind of more creative year, a little bit. Um, but with that being said, 2000, I would probably want to go back and revisit some of the old pay per views just to see how much has changed. Apparently, a lot has changed. But that with that being said, thank you very much for listening and or watching this video with us tonight. I should note that I'm going to keep continuing the year and wrestling review things. It's probably going to be kind of not common to review some good years in wrestling, but I'm going to try to do my best to do a lot of research and all that stuff. Maybe I might go back to the 80s or 90s. Might go into the 2000s, maybe 2010s. I don't know. But I want to keep doing these because it's I want to share the wrestling knowledge with you, the people, our Reckless Paradise, podcast followers. And plus, you could share that information with your other friends and all that stuff in the future as well. But with that being said, like I said, thank you very much for watching and or listening. Um, so, with that being said, next week's episode. Okay, this is going to be a tough one, but it's not really a tough one, but it's going to be an interesting one because SummerSlam's just coming up, or it's coming on at this time. And it's the biggest party of the summer. Why not? Go through some SummerSlam matches, and I will kind of do like a deep talk with it, as I like to do on this channel. Um, but August 8th, SummerSlam matches. I wrote down a little bit of a list. I didn't do too much, but I wrote down a little bit of a list, and I'm gonna talk about the matches that I have written down. So, and tonight's song of the night is going to be from a band that I had recently did the whole pilgrimage on for Sum 41, and that is going to be coming up kind of soon. I don't know when, but it's going to come up kind of soon, and is from their album Underclass Hero, and is the self-titled song Underclass Hero from Sum 41. And there is a music video for it, and I will have Marissa put it in the top right hand of the screen, so you guys can go watch it, view it for yourselves, and oh no, sorry, almost forgot the most important part. Please go subscribe to the Reckless Paradise Podcast YouTube channel. We have a link tree in the description down below, which will take you to our Reddit page, Twitter page, Instagram page, Facebook page, my Instagram versus Instagram, my YouTube channel, my gaming YouTube channel, and also in that link tree as well, it is a GoFundMe for Marissa's dad, Richard Andrews. He's currently going through some chemo treatments right now, but the donations and all that stuff will actually help them out with gas, electric bills, food, and all that stuff. So please go share and spread the good word about this cause. And every donation counts, and she will very, very much appreciate it. And with that being said, thank you very, very much for joining us tonight. And I will see you guys next week for SummerSlam matches. Peace!